Hello, hello. I hope you're having a good time. And I want to welcome to my friends, my family, and the entire community of Unity 13, and in general to the conscious community in this journey toward the self. And I want to thank you for being here again. This is another rainy night in Guadalajara. Um, I'm sorry. And I was saying thank you for joining us again in this series of talks connected to the celebration of that cosmic portal arriving with tomorrow's full moon, associated with love, soulmates from the Jewish tradition, and from the study of Kabbalah. And I've received some message from people watch this video about yesterday's conversation, and I realized there were different reaction on the topic. And as I said, everyone is entitled to their own opinion of what love is and how we perceive or express love. And that's something that I truly respect because in some way I feel it enriched this experience through the change of ideas. With that in mind, I feel grateful and I feel also motivated to continue with today's topic dedicated to explaining the soulmates from the study of Kabbalah. Uh, but before exploring the topic of soulmates, I want to go back something from yesterday's talk is the definition of love from Kabbalistic perspective. This because I experienced technical issues with the internet outages, so I was not able to complete the video. If you saw it, you're gonna realize about it. So it was I'm going to continue today, and only to say what is the love definition of from the Kabbalah study. So for that, I'm going to share the presentation. Okay, good. So I think is now visible. Okay, so only to say that the love from Kabbalah, according to everything I was saying yesterday, love is the energy that drives us to give unconditionally and to receive altruistically. You know, again, when I practice this word, some just uh, jump from my pronunciation. But in altruistic way, to receive in altruistic way, finding an harmonious balance between both, where beauty between love and desire. So it reach beauty and grace, and they are revealed. It endures over time with consistency and humility, connecting all these qualities with fairness, and manifests the physical world through concrete actions that benefit oneself, others, and creation as a whole. And with this definition, I am talking about a well being that begins with oneself before it can be expanded over to others, even if that's just one person, a partner, a friend, a sibling, or parents. But it also means that these same specific actions extend outward into the world, into the environment, into the environment we live in. In other words, into all nature. So, love can be expressed and must be expressed to care for nature, and with all that implies. And that also means that I first have to begin with by loving myself in order to be able to love others. Because when I love myself, I recognize a divine attribute within me. And from there, I'm sorry, my I've been talking all day, but so I have to drink something. From there, if I come to recognize humbly that everything else that exists carries a divine nature too, and once I that, I hope our concept of love is now broader, but above all, that we carry this awareness with us. Just like energy, love is never destroyed. It can only be distorted or changed. And now let's move to um, let's move to what is the soul in Kabbalah. This is a topic that I was going to explain yesterday, but it was cut. So I am joining the soul study, the soul definition, then the soulmates, and then the conscious relationships. And for this, I want to share a broad uh, accepted definition of what soul is, and says that the soul is the enduring non-material essence of a person that gives rise to consciousness, personal identity, free will, moral responsibility, and the capacity to know, love, create, and seek truth. It is understood as the deepest center of human existence, sorry, and the dimensions that integrates mind, emotions, and spirit, and in many traditions continues beyond physical death. Whether interpreted as a metaphysical reality or as a symbol of the authentic self, the soul represents the innermost source of life, meaning and connection with others, nature, and the transcendent. And if we make pause to reflect on this definition, we can see that it's quite complete since it integrates multiple levels and dimensions of the human being. But let's see how this is explained or complete through the Kabbalistic study of the soul. Mm, then, if I have to simplify the explanation of the soul uh, only with one picture or one image, I will say that the soul is this slide. But the soul is not only the soul of the human being, but the soul is of everything, like we are going to see. But to arrive at that, to arrive or reach at that statement, we're going to take it step by step, looking at the levels of the soul in relation to the worlds of creation, going through each of those spheres in details. Like, well, actually, I won't repeat. I won't repeat this today since it's already covered in yesterday's video. So I invite you to go back and get a sense of what I'm building on here. But this is only a relation of the worlds of creation and the souls of levels, where we can see at the lower level we have the level of soul known as nefesh, associated with the physical world. Then comes ruach, the emotional level associated with the world of formation or the world of emotions. This is something that I was saying yesterday about love and the emotions. Next, in an upper level, we have neshama, which is an intellectual and spiritual level associated with the uh, creation called Bria. At the right, we have the level of Haya, associated with the world of emanation. And at the very highest, the level of soul known as Yehida, associated with the world of the infinite or the unity. Then, explaining level by level of the soul according to the Kabbalah study, the animal soul is also known as the soul of the matter. This is why in Kabbalah the physical body is not simply called the body. It is known as the soul of matter or the animal soul connected to the physical matter and the body's biological functions. It's nice. Since this soul level is associated with the world of Asiya, the world of actions and matter. And in Kabbalah, all matter is also understood as the densest expressions of the soul. In other words, everything is soul, even what lies within matter. Then we have in the upper level of soul, the emotional and moral soul, called ruach. As and we enter the plane of thoughts and emotions. At this level, we no longer perceive only the physical body, but also the psycho-emotional influence we pick up from our environment, the ideas, feelings, intentions, and emotional states that give rise to our actions. Then the word ruach literally means wind or air or spirit. But in this context, it represents the psychic soul, the soul of the seeking. And in this dimension is where traditional psychology operates, since it's deeply shaped by the conditioning of our environment and personal experience. This corresponds to the world of formation or Yetzirah, specifically sharing the Sephirah of Yesod, Hod, Nesach, they are highlighted in blue, and Tiferet highlighted in red. And the energetic center on this level is focused in the gastrointestinal system, the stomach, the liver, and sexual organs. And here, love can be experienced as an affection, empathy, trust, forgiveness, and emotional growth. In an upper level, we have the neshama, which is the intellectual and spiritual soul, is in a combination. The It's a combination between spiritual and intellectual soul in an intellectual level. And this level of soul represents our true spiritual identity. At this level, we stop defining ourselves only by our body or emotions or personal history and begin to recognize ourselves as a unique, individualized expression of the infinite or, or the divinity. Here, we understand that our essence transcends our family lineage, our culture, or country where we were born, the era we're living, and even the experiences that have shaped our personality. All of these are part of our early existence, but they don't define our true identity. And then we can see that Neshama corresponds to the intellectual and spiritual soul. And this is a level from which we gain the ability to understand our true purpose, to discern truth beyond appearances, and to access a deeper understanding of love. Here, love, we stop. I'm sorry. um, okay, I'm going to rethink what I'm going to say. Here, we stop loving only out of need, affinity, or emotions, and begin to love from the conscious understanding of the unity that exists among all beings. And the energetic field or the energetic center is found in the heart, understood as the meeting point between mind and spirit, or mind and emotions. And in Kabbalah, this level is primarily associated with the worlds of creation, Bria, okay? In the Sephirah of Binah, this one, which is the sphere of understanding and deep comprehension. From Binah, consciousness begins to integrate and balance the qualities of Chesed, which is love, the right, and love and expansion, and Geburah at the left, which I was saying yesterday is the discipline and the discernment, but also the power and desire. Building a bridge with the world of formation and preparing the soul to access still higher states of consciousness, which is the next level called Haya, the living soul. But at this higher level, associated with the world of emanation, the soul is closely connected to divinity. Here, consciousness transcends the ego and experiences unconditional love as the continuous flow or the infinite. Here, At this level, we begin to glimpse intuitive emanations of the infinite wisdom, insights that lie beyond logical reasoning from the logical reasoning of the left hemisphere. At this level, the perception of time and space no longer exists. Then, at the very top of the soul level, or the highest level of the soul, according to the study of Kabbalah, represents the complete unity with the infinite, with the whole, with God, uh, or whatever you call it. And at this level, all separation disappears, including our perception of time and space. This in this level, if we could understand in that way, is the unity with everything. And the soul in this level is understood as a part of everything that exists and everything that could ever exist. And at this level, love is no longer experienced as a relationship between two individuals, but as the awareness of the absolute connection with the whole, the realization of absolute oneness. Then the energetic field of these last three levels, I mean Neshama, Haya, and Yehida, resides mainly in the head. I mean in the brain, in the two hemispheres and the pineal gland, like I was saying, I was explaining yesterday. But with, I have been explaining up to here. I like to propose. We saw another definition of what the soul is, but this Kabbalistic soul definition I am proposing says that the soul is the individual consciousness of the infinite light that descends into existence to discover that its true nature is love. Through experience, free will, and a spiritual rectification, it transforms the desire to receive into the capacity to share, ascending from action to emotion, to understanding, to the experience of the divine presence, and ultimately to the realization of absolute unity. And with this, we could say the following: we don't we don't have we don't have a soul. We are the soul, and in truth, so is everything that exists. The physical body, or mind, and our emotions are simply expressions of that same soul, operating at different levels of consciousness, much like water expressed as ice, or liquid, or gas. And now, when we have defined what a soul is, or the structure of the soul, it's essential to understand how the bridge toward to the soulmates is built. So the level of love we experience within us determines the level of soul we are able to connect with in a soulmate relationship. This is our first key to understanding why we attract certain people and why certain connections form at a specific level of the soul. Then each person's capacity to love, give, serve, understand, and give themselves to another is what determines the level of connection they are able to establish. In other words, okay, I'm going to, in other words, the level of the capacity I have to love, I have for giving. What I have for giving will be the same level at which I am able to connect with another of another soul's level we already described. And we cannot form a deep connection at a level of consciousness we haven't yet learned to express in our own lives. And that say is worth nothing that in a way or existence unfolds across all five levels of the souls at once, and not always in order. But the goal here isn't to live at a single level, but to become more conscious on how we connect and how we experience life within each of them. I I mean, within each of those levels, because that connection can show up with anyone we interact with today or every day, and that could be a partner, a co-worker, a classmate, a business associate, or anyone else we cross paths with within in daily life. Because every encounter carries a potential to unfold at any of the levels we just explore. And more than trying to intellectually identify or soulmate, what truly matters is understanding this, that we attract the same level of love we are genuinely living and expressing. And the quality of our relationships mirrors our states of consciousness and our capacity to love. And as our capacity to give selflessly grows, so does our ability to connect with higher levels of the soul. This is, in fact, precisely the rectifying work all of us as souls come into this world to do, to bring giving and receiving into balance. So, whether we're already in a relationship or still on the path toward finding a soulmate or a couple or whatever, the connection we form will reflect the level of love we are capable to of expressing, and in turn, one of the soul's levels uh, we have already developed. And with that in mind, um, I want to walk through the four relationships that exist between giving and receiving, or between love and desire. Having four interactions of between giving and receiving. The first, uh, the first one is receiving for the sake of receiving for the sake of receiving. The second, giving in order to receive. The third, giving for the sake of giving, and receiving for the sake of giving. Maybe this could be very a little confusing, but I'm going to try to explain each of them. The first two, uh, these ones, one of two, are tied directly to the body's selfish desire, or closest to the body's selfish desire, according to the conscious level we have. Rooted in the materiality of the physical world, and as a result, to the lower levels of the soul. That doesn't make them bad, they are simply the natural consciousness of those levels. Because if we are honest, who doesn't want to receive everything good this world has to offer at the physical level? I mean, all the wealth, all the health, and all the love. But the other two, three and four, are reached through spiritual work, or more precisely, through a consciousness that connects us to higher levels of the soul, or higher levels of spirituality. Neither of this is inherently good or bad, either, because I believe all of us, in one way or another, fall into each of these four dynamics at some point in our social interactions. What matters is being conscious and honest. What's my awareness within these interactions? Where does my consciousness sit in my own giving and receiving? And here's what I want to add for this session is, I mean, those dynamics. I'm going to try to explain the first one is related to the densest level, or the lower level. I mean, receiving for the sake of receiving. And this occurs when a person, or us, want only what others has to give, or if when I only want something from other. And this is the consciousness of newborns, of babies, or child in the earliest years of life. Because if we observe a baby doesn't smile, reach out, or climb to you because uh, he wants to give you an affection. It smiles or cries because that's how it gets what it needs, with no thought of giving at all. If anything, is the opposite. The baby or the child wants something from you and doesn't care if you have it or not, or whatever. And this is quite literally the consciousness of the nefesh, the soul of matter, tied to the physical body, to the world of Asiya, and to the Sephria of Malhut in the tree of life. Then, when someone settles into this consciousness as an adult, they, they are what we tend to call a selfish person, someone who only looks to get something out of a relationship. And like a paradox, I'm sorry, um, these kind of persons, they are not really they are not really a dangerous type, because they don't have any shame in saying it outright. I want this from you, and I'm not here to negotiate. I don't care a 50-50 or 60-40 or 70-30 split. They only care about one thing, and it's exactly the one they want. So in somehow they are acting with kind of honesty in that, even if an honesty built on selfish desire. Then in a romantic relationship, this is This consciousness sounds like I am only interested in this relationship if I get what I want out of it. And by the love or energetic affinity, a person like this will always attract someone looking for exactly the same thing. This happens at every level of the soul, which means that two people can spend a lifetime together in this level or run a business together for years simply because each has something the other wants, and they neither mind giving at all. A simple example of this is still on the material level is when um, someone rich or wealthy rich is willing to support uh, someone else with which is attractive physically. They are partners, so we have the old man rich and the young, pretty nice woman. And as long as both they can be together as long as both have what the other wants, and the relationship works without any problem. So, unfortunately, many people mistake this for marriage or for the perfect partnership, precisely because giving what they give costs neither of them any real effort. Okay, but what draws a soulmates at this level then is everything belonging to the physical material world is taking care of the body, health, physical presence, and economic security. This is the level of the natural attractions, the chemistry or the presence, or the sense of safety. Something all of us feel naturally the moment we recognize that the first part towards another person. It isn't yet an elevated level of consciousness, but it's real. And it is the natural starting point at every human relationship because it builds from its way to higher awareness. And that could be expressed by taking care of my health. I mean, this is the way I attract my soulmate in this level by caring myself, caring my health, my body, my resources, and in an elevated way, not spending my resources on trivialities of the physical world. Then we have the other interaction between giving in order to receive. This level is not because we enjoy giving, but in order to receive something back, something in return. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna take a second um, to for the air conditioner because it's a little hot here now. Give me a second. Okay. Oop, much better now. Okay, let me see how is the transmission, the presentation. Okay, so I was saying that this level we give because we expect something in return, and this is a step up from the level before, but still isn't a full consciousness of what it truly means to give or to love. Because consider the difference between the animal soul, and the psychic soul, already like an attribute unique to the human beings. When an animal is asked for effort, it run away. But one of the great difference between the human and animals is that human can exercise free will and accept discomfort in exchange for a greater good, for something better. We can choose to push through effort, even discomfort, to obtain something we consider worthwhile. And that's why we work 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day, or for a week, or 2 weeks, in exchange for a paycheck, even when we don't particularly enjoy the work itself or the job. So the human tried here as willingness to give something, but with an expectation attached, uh, expecting to receive something for what it gives. And in this is the dynamic that most of us recognize in ourselves, often in our relationships. Because from the outside, this consciousness can look generous, since it reads a willingness to give or to help. But we rarely know the true intention behind the action. For example, someone who volunteers on a shelter or on a church, but doesn't but he does it only to be recognized, or to feel like he's a good person, or because it opened doors to socially, or for traveling, and or any other reason than simply giving. And we need to be careful at this level, because many spiritual schools or religions actually promote this kind of giving. We are told that if we want to receive a blessing, we first have to give, and without realizing it, we end up negotiating with the universe, with God, or whatever we choose to call it. And like I make this offering, this tithe, this work, or this sacrifice, if I get this other thing in return, almost like buying an indulgence. And it's not just religious. Only many public institutions and government programs run on this same logic, at least here in Mexico, using it to secure cheap or free labor. And these dynamics belong to the level of the so-called ruach. Uh, okay, I think I forgot about the presentation. Okay, okay, ruach. So I was saying that this dynamic belongs to the, or can be placed in the level of ruach, because is the soul shaped by social social relationship, family, and cultural environment. So where we grew up in, or where our social bonds are formed. But in a romantic relationship, this is unfortunately the level where most of us are right now in these interactions. Even though we have normalized them so completely, we barely notice that I'll give you if you give me. I buy I buy flowers, or I cook, or I make some gesture of affections, but deep down I am expecting prize, visible gratitude, or special attention in return. And if I sense that, if I feel that won't happen, I simply don't bother. A simple way to catch this distortion in ourselves is to notice how we feel right after a generous act, like if after doing something meant a service, or if after doing uh, that supposed good thing, I feel important for having done it, or feeling the kind of pride. And that's a clear sign that I was giving in order to receive. And what draws the soulmate here and this level is genuine company. First, toward on our own needs and feelings, and from there toward those of others. Understanding the environment, or the limitations and the conditioning each of us carries, while staying attentive to those same conditions in other person. But interesting, this is also cultivated through travel, opening ourselves to other cultures and other ways of living love, since that's where the growth of our own inner culture takes shape. Whether form the relationship takes, what's learned at this level is that loving is not only about feeling or affection, but about growing together. And once emotions stop being the center of the relationship, a deeper question surfaces. What what is this relationship actually for? Then we have the third interaction, giving for the sake of giving. I think this is very clear. I don't care to give, so I give. This is the third level, belongs to people who give simply for the sake of giving. What they give may often seem small to us or for others, maybe something that costs them nothing to part with, or even sometimes no one else particularly wants. But they give it generously and consistently, without any conditions. It is not always what a partner and maybe what they give is not always what the partner expects, and it might not even be specifically useful. But whatever they have to give, they just give it, and expect expect nothing in return. Notably, their sense of giving at this level tends to be remarkably creative. They are always looking for ways to give more and better. At the level before, in contrast, and the level before, it's easy to sense when someone is giving only to bare minimum. And again, by love of affinity, someone like this is likely to, I mean, like someone who is always trying to give is attracting to another person just like them. Some is attracting someone else who tries to give. And in fact, two such people can live happily together for the lifetime, because what makes them happy is exactly giving. And in this dynamic, they are not looking for a partner or for a business associate or an opportunity with an eye toward what they'll get in return. For them, every encounter is simply another opportunity to give, and that alone makes them happy. A simple example of this can, I don't know what I am in the presentation. I'm sorry, but well, we have the four interaction of giving and receiving. So I was saying that a simple example from a romantic relationship, someone who loves to cook, and the person cooks generously for the person they love. They don't expect uh, any particular um, things, and not because their partner asked it, but because cooking is something the person enjoys, and offering it to someone they love, and or someone who gives their time, attention, or small gestures consistently, simply because that's their natural way of loving. And of course, this is a higher stage of consciousness in the giving, the soul expanding through its own gifts and attributes. What I We can express here what I naturally have to give, flowing from that infinite source. And this is the level of the soul known as neshama. It's associated with the level of neshama. The individualized soul, the one that rises above the conditioning and culture, family, and origins, to reveal who I truly am, my gifts, my ideas, my motivations, my deepest desires, and especially my life purpose. So, what draws a soulmate at these levels is precisely coming to know myself as individual, beyond the limits and conditionings um, inherited from my culture. And it means knowing my gifts deeply, and however unlikely it might sound, daring to actually do what I love to do, fully aware that is my life purpose. And this perhaps is the highest way to attract a soulmate at this level and um, lower levels. Not by searching for them, but by becoming myself what I have to offer. And at this level, souls recognize they are come together to do something greater than themselves. They share a mission that becomes the center of the relationship, and they are not longer just enjoying each other's company. They are seeking to serve creation together through projects or teachings or service, through art or through healing or through legacy. And what is learned here is that love finds its fullness when each shares a purpose, and once that purpose stops belonging only to the couple, love begins to open out outward humanity, bringing us to the recognition of the next level, which is higher. And I touch on this on our last talk. This is the level. Uh, I'm I am moving to the four interaction called receiving for the sake of giving. I know sounds weird, but I was playing last yesterday's talk, because this is the level which I come the receiver of what someone who loves me wants to give me. The- I am the receiver that someone who loves me want to give me with all uh, their heart, and in turn, I make a space, a conscious effort to receive uh, what the other person wants to give me with gratitude and humility. Because if we imagine if uh, that we all live only in the same consciousness of giving for the sake of giving, we will we will then need someone else capable of receiving altruistically. Oh, I say correctly now. But the other person has something to give, then should exist someone to receive it, and sometimes we don't want to receive. And here a fascinating dynamic emerges. I receive not out of need, but because receiving is itself our way of sharing love. And the Kabbalistic sages offer an example of this that I find is especially clear, uh, saying that we can imagine a close friend who cares for us deeply, and secretly in secret he makes a plan for a big party in your honor. So they bring your favorite dish and arrange as a surprise and invites you over. But since you have no idea, you are hungry and on the way, going to the house or whatever. So you grab a bite or got lunch or whatever. So you arrive to the place without appetite. When you discover the surprise your friend or your partner or your parents prepare for you with so much love, what do you do? Do you tell them that you don't want anything because you already ate? And almost always we find a kind way to respond, so we don't want to hold the feeling of someone who cares for us so much. And at that point, it wouldn't be right to rush off their gesture and effort. Besides, it's a dish that you genuinely love, you genuinely enjoy. So, of course, you will enjoy it too. And in that moment, you have no personal desire to receive. You don't have the desire to eat it. But you, within your vessel, you expand your vessel and receive what the other person genuinely wants to give you. I don't know if it's clear enough. Let's see here in the comments. Okay, no comments. Okay, but in a romantic relationship, maybe it can be used the same example, and because uh, but I think it's very clear with that example, and but I have to say this stage or this interaction between giving or receiving could be also easy to confuse with the first, receiving for the sake of receiving. But this one is a more elevated level of consciousness. And with honesty toward ourselves, the difference becomes clear when do I want, if I make a question, do I want to receive for my own sake, or am I receiving because I am making a space to honor the effort and light of another being who wants to place something in me? And that word, light, is exactly the key to this level. Because here we connect with the Haya level of the soul that recognize for the first time the divine spark in the other. And at this level, we stop trying to change the other person. We only accept them fully, and there is a peace that it's hard to put in words. And then the interaction becomes shared. The interaction at this level becomes shared prayers, meditation, contemplations, spiritual service, mutual inspiration, and an expansion of consciousness. A level where silence communicates as much as words do. So, what draws a soulmate at this level, and it's worth sitting with this, is exercising our own creative gifts, using the intelligence and sensitivity to find new ways to give and to love. What's revealed here is the divine presence in the other shared with us, allowing our identity to begin dissolving into the next level, the Yehida. And there is, I mean, the next level in the level of souls, because we have only these four relationships. But this is not a preparation for that. I mean, the Yehida level is a preparation for transcendence, for the corrections of the world, or put in another way, is that longing that lifts us when we fall in love, the desire to build a better world, because with that because with that person which is with us, it suddenly looks more beautiful and more possible. And this is the recognition of a soulmate in its highest level. I know this is intense, but well, I want to say that Yehida, the level of Yehida of the soul, literally means the unity. And at this level, the very motion of time and space dissolves. And from this, we learn that love doesn't just unite souls, but love reveals that they were never truly separated. Okay, because I don't know where. Okay. Mm, okay, I'm gonna stop the presentation here because we are finished. But to make a kind of summarize, I want to say that our current relationship mirror the level of consciousness from which we are able to love by paying attention to how we give, receive, and connect with others. We can recognize the soul level or consciousness of, we can recognize this, the soul level we actually have. And by extension, the kind of souls we have the affinity to attract or recognize or sustain into a relationship. And that affinity can show up mainly at the physical level. I mean, the nefesh, or the emotional level, or the spiritual level, or the individual, or including the highest level of the soul, which is the Yehida. And if we see this in that way, a soulmate is not only a predestined person, well, we will stumble upon one day. Is the soul we share a specific affinity of consciousness with a specific point in our own evolution. In other words, each soul level has its own way of recognizing, loving, and forming bonds. And we can only build deep relationships with souls whose consciousness resonates with our own. And that's why the real question is not where is my soulmate, but rather at what level of consciousness I am learning to love. Because the quality of our relationship will always reflect the quality of our consciousness. As and I want to say also that as all the soul evolves, so does it its understanding of love. A relationship once built on physical need can grow into a deep friendship or an emotional connection, can become a spiritual bond, and conditioned love can give way to something conscious, free, and selfless. Every rise in consciousness expands both our capacity to give on our capacity to recognize souls of a high on a higher affinity. And this same principle thought also explains why some relationships naturally come to end, sadly. Because when two souls met, it's never by chance. They are drawn together by an affinity of consciousness and shared purpose. Each each one arrives in the other's life to reveal a specific portion of life, a lesson, a healing, a challenge, a correction, or a chance to grow into a higher way of loving. As long as both keep growing within the same level or consciousness, the relationship holds its strength and its purpose. But the soul never stays quiet or in calm. isn't always in constant evolutions. So when one person undergoes a deep shift in consciousness, whether growing or regressing, their way of loving, of understanding life, and of perceiving reality shifts along with it. What once created resonance might stop doing so. And not because the love was banished, but because the inner frequency each person is living from is no longer the same. And at that point, a kind of separation begins to form, not necessarily out of conflict, betrayal, or falling out of love, but out of a difference in each soul's evolutionary state. Then the conversation loses the deep, loses interest or diverse, um, loses purpose or stop aligning with each other's purposes, and once held the bond together, gradually lost its grip. And from a spiritual perspective, it isn't the soul that rejects the relationship. It's the affinity between the two that shifts, because it's also in the nature of the soul to keep re- reaching towards its own growth and spiritual correction in this world. So um, the reverse can the opposite can happens too. A person can slip into a lower level of consciousness, caught by fear, by resentment, selfishness, dependency, attachment, or the single-minded pursuit of personal gain. In doing so, they begin identifying again with denser levels of the soul. If other person keeps rising, the gap between them widens until the relationship loses the balance that once held it up. And for this reason, separation don't always mean spiritual failure. Very often, they simply show that the purpose that once brought those souls together has already been fulfilled. Each received what they came to learn, revealed the light they were able to bring into that relationship, and now needs to continue on their own path to keep evolving. And that doesn't mean the love disappears, because genuine love can live as gratitude, respect, and blessing, even once the relationship no longer forms part of either person's daily life. Understood this way, loving also means knowing when to let go. When holding on will hold back the spiritual growth of one of you, of one of the persons. But in the end, a soulmate is not permanent condition or a fixed label. It is a relationship of conscious, like I said, it's a relationship of consciousness affinity that evolves at the same pace as pace or piece pace. I was confused with the word. So as our capacity to love rises, so does the kind of self we're able to resonate with. And that's why the real work is not searching desperately for the right person, but raising our own consciousness, and is that inner transformation which will naturally allow us to attract or to recognize and sustain relationships that grow even deeper, ever deeper, in a free condition and closer to unity. And with that, we will wrap up today's session, unless there are any questions to answer. And tomorrow, we will close our To Be Up talk series. What I will be talking about specifically about the festival of love and soulmates from the study of Kabbalah, or known as to be up. Okay, again, and there are no questions, not in the WhatsApp, not in the chat. So it's a little late also. So I think that'll be all for today. So I hope to see you tomorrow in the full moon night. And with this, I want to say bye and thank you very much.